After Natalie stood me up for the 5th time at the marriage registration office, I finally blocked her everywhere. Her number, her WeChat, everything. If friends invited me somewhere and I knew she'd be there, I'd turn it down without a second thought. If I saw her favorite coffee shop on my route, I'd take a longer way just to avoid it. Whenever the company planned a group outing and she was on the list, I'd ask for leave right away. Even on New Year's Eve, when she came to my door with gifts in her hands, I didn't open it. I stayed quiet, pretending not to be home. I didn't answer her calls. I didn't reply to her texts. It was like I had completely disappeared from her world. I used to love her so deeply that my emotions rose and fell with hers. But after being stood up the 5th time, something inside me finally broke. I didn't want to live like that anymore. If being let down again and again was the only thing I could expect from her, then I'd rather live peacefully on my own. The 5th time she didn't show up was because of her childhood best friend Victor. I sent her a message, but she didn't reply. I called her, but she didn't pick up. The marriage office was full of happy couples signing papers and taking photos. And there I was, sitting alone on a bench, like I didn't belong there at all. When the call finally connected, it wasn't even Natalie, it was Victor. "Kevin? Sorry, man," he said casually. "I got scratched by a stray cat, and Natalie's with me at the hospital. She's helping me get a rabies shot." Sounded confident, like it was perfectly reasonable for my fiancé to leave me for him. That made it the 5th time. Natalie had ditched me. The last time Victor twisted his ankle, and she rushed to the hospital. Before that, it started raining, and she ran off to bring him an umbrella. Another time he got drunk in a bar in the middle of the day, and she dropped everything to pick him up. 5 times. Every single time it was because of Victor. And every time, she didn't hesitate to leave me behind. As the registry office was about to close, a staff member came over and asked gently, "Sir, are you still planning to register today?" I shook my head. "No," she smiled kindly. "If today's inconvenient, you can come back another day." "No need," I said calmly. "I won't be coming back. Ever." The first few times I had been angry, hurt, and unwilling to accept it. But today, when I heard Victor's voice, something inside me went quiet. No more panic. No more desperate questions. No more trying to understand why. Just calm clarity. I typed one final message to Natalie. "We're done." Then I blocked her. Just like that, it was over. Not wanting to go home. I wandered around for a while before ending up at a small coffee shop on the corner. The moment I stepped in, the smell of roasted beans and soft jazz filled the air. And that's when it hit. Me, this was Natalie's favorite place. How ironic. Even while trying to forget her, I somehow walked right into her world again. We actually worked at the same company. And honestly, she was the one who made the first move. I still remember the day she joined as a new hire. Her arms were full of documents, and she accidentally bumped straight into me. Later, she told me that from that moment, she decided I was her, type clean-cut, calm, and kind. At that time, I just thought she was clumsy and cute. So when she added me on WeChat, I accepted. Soon she started bringing me homemade lunches and inviting me out often. Eventually, things just happened naturally between us. And we started dating. 2 months into our relationship, I once called her, but a man picked up. At first I thought I had dialed the wrong number. Then he said, "You're Kevin, right?" "I'm Victor. Natalie's cooking noodles for me. She'll call you back soon?" In the background, I could hear her humming and the sound of pots and pans. That's when I first heard about Victor. Natalie told me he was her childhood neighbor, someone she grew up with. He had just come back from studying abroad. She spoke so casually, but my gut told me there was more to it. The next time we had a date, I met Victor in person. He was taller than her, confident, casually stylish, the kind of guy who knows he looks good. What stood out most was how comfortable he was with her. From the entrance to our table, his hand never left her shoulder. During dinner, they kept serving food to each other, peeling shrimp, picking out fish bones. I sat there, watching them, feeling invisible. They looked more like a couple than we did, and her actual boyfriend felt like the outsider. Victor just laughed and said, Don't get me wrong, Kevin. Natalie and I are childhood sweethearts. We just know each other better than anyone else. He dragged out the word anyone, making it perfectly clear to him. I'd always be the outsider. Then he suddenly leaned toward Natalie and half joked, Natalie, I told you not to drag me here. See, Kevin's getting jealous. Natalie frowned slightly. Don't be ridiculous. Kevin's not that petty. But even as she said it, her hands didn't stop moving. She peeled a shrimp perfectly and dropped it into Victor's bowl, like it was second nature. After that, every time Natalie and I went on a date, Victor would conveniently have something come up. One day it was a cold and fever. The next, he'd forgotten his house key. Then, it was stomach pain. Again and again, whenever Victor called, no matter how much I needed Natalie, she would leave me without hesitation to go to him. Feeling uneasy about how close she was to Victor, I finally confronted her. Can't you and Victor keep a bit more distance? But Natalie brushed it off. Victor's been abroad for so long, he's just more open. Besides, we grew up together. If there were really something between us, we'd have been a couple already. Victor had made several obvious provocations, almost openly declaring that he and Natalie were more than just friends. But Natalie always acted so calm and unbothered that I didn't know how to challenge it without sounding insecure. After spending some time outside, I came home and noticed a pair of women's high heels by the entrance. I recognized them. They were the ones I'd bought for Natalie. Even though we didn't live together, I'd given her a spare key to my place. She was curled up on the couch, taking a nap. When she heard the door open, she slowly opened her eyes. She didn't look well. I walked past her without a word, hung up my coat, and went straight into the kitchen to start cooking, completely ignoring her. Her voice was hoarse when she finally spoke. Kevin, why did you block me on WeChat and stop answering my calls? I tied on an apron and replied calmly, I sent you a message. I said we're done. Natalie let out a sigh. All because I couldn't make it to register the marriage with you? I'm sorry. Victor really did get scratched by a stray cat. The wound was deep. The knife in my hand hit the cutting board with a heavy thud. Natalie, this is the 5th time you've stood me up because of him. She froze and gave me a look of disbelief. But nothing happened those other times. Why are you suddenly making a big deal out of it now? When I turned around, I saw genuine confusion on her face. She truly didn't think she'd done anything wrong. The tomatoes on the cutting board were now a mess juice splattered everywhere. Just like my self-control breaking apart, so Victor can summon you anytime, anywhere, but I can't even get you to return one phone call? Is Victor the only person left on this planet who can help him? You really think it's reasonable for someone who has a boyfriend to drop everything to take care of him? Natalie went silent for a moment, as if she wanted to avoid a fight. Kevin, you're too emotional right now. I don't want to argue, but you know, Victor and I grew up together. I laughed, cold and sharp. That same excuse again. Right. You grew up together. So that gives him the right to wedge himself into our relationship? That gives you the right to stand me up again on the day we were supposed to register our marriage. Natalie, be honest with yourself for the past few years. Who's really been your boyfriend? The kitchen went completely silent. Only the slow drip from a loose faucet echoed in the room. Natalie's eyes darted away. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. I shut my eyes tightly. The storm of emotion inside me began to fade, leaving only a deep exhaustion. I walked to the front door and opened it. You should go. Forget the marriage license, we're done. Natalie's head snapped up, her eyes wide with disbelief. What do you mean? I mean exactly what I said. I picked up the spare key she'd left on the shoe cabinet. Now, please leave. She stood frozen, confusion written all over her face, as if she couldn't understand what I was saying. My patience finally wore thin. I gently grabbed her wrist, firm enough to be final, not enough to hurt, and guided her out the door. Kevin, she finally snapped out of it, panic in her voice. Are you crazy? Just because of something this small, I didn't answer. I just closed the door behind her. My biggest feeling through this whole relationship with Natalie. Exhaustion. I was just too tired. And now, I don't want to be tired anymore. It's time to cut my losses while I still can. That night, I barely slept. Half dreaming, half awake. All I could see was Natalie and Victor. I dragged myself out of bed to wash up, only to be startled by the man in the mirror, sunken eyes, messy stubble. I looked like a heartbroken drifter. 3 years of devotion, and all I got in return was this wreck of a man. I splashed ice-cold water on my face, shaved clean, and put on a crisp, ironed shirt. The person in the mirror finally looked a bit like his old self again. A friend called me. "Kevin, same old place tonight for the get-together. And don't you dare ditch us again, just to hang out with your girlfriend." I instinctively asked, "Is Natalie going to be there?" He chuckled. "Of course. Didn't you two say you were getting your marriage certificate? Why haven't we even seen a wedding photo yet? I broke up with Natalie." I cut him off, my tone flat. His rambling stopped cold. For a few seconds, there was nothing but silence before he stammered, "We broke up. Yeah, just happened yesterday. From now on, if she's going to be somewhere, don't invite me." He seemed rattled by how calm I sounded. He muttered a few awkward words of sympathy, then quickly hung up. Honestly, his reaction was only natural. In our entire friend circle on WeChat, everyone knew how much I pampered Natalie. I remember once during a group dinner last year, she casually mentioned craving a trending cake from the east side of the city. I drove through a thunderstorm to get it. When I came back, soaked to the bone, I still held that delicate cake box with both hands like it was treasure. Everyone laughed and said I spoiled her too much. I just toweled my hair and said, "She's still young. What's wrong with spoiling her a little?" She was 3 years younger than me with a baby face, and I always treated her like a delicate little girl who needed protection. I stayed up many nights helping her finish work proposals. Whenever she wanted designer bags or name-brand clothes, I paid without a second thought. Her office drawer was always stocked with the heat packs I bought her. I practically took care of every detail of her life. Even her parents used to joke that I'd spoiled her into being completely dependent. All those years, I was like a tireless gardener tending to a beautiful flower with everything. I never once asked myself, did she ever truly care about the one planting the seeds? After I hung up, I sat there for a while, then posted a tweet with the caption, "Long live singlehood." The image was of the rising sun outside my window, golden rays piercing through the clouds. Like I was finally breaking free from the chains of love. The moment I hit post, I felt oddly light, like a weight had been lifted from my chest. Within minutes, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Friends and coworkers liked and commented, some shocked, some gossiping, most expressing concern, feeling more grounded. I got ready for work until I saw a group message about a company team-building event. Natalie's name was right there on the list. I immediately applied for leave. Outside, the sun was shining. Tree shadows danced in the breeze. Maybe it was time for a trip to the seaside. Let the salty ocean wind carry away the last of these lingering clouds. The beaches of Hawaii had always been an obsession buried deep in my heart. I remembered last winter when I spent an entire month planning the trip, buying us matching sun hats and everything. This time, no one's going to interrupt us. She had promised me, full of conviction. Not even Victor. But just minutes before we were about to board the plane, Victor called. I still remembered the pale look on Natalie's face as she answered. Victor got into a fight at a bar. He's in the hospital, ... I need to go check on him. She didn't even think about how I felt. Without a second's hesitation, she dropped her suitcase and ran off. The Hawaii trip I had been dreaming of vanished. How? Just like that. Natalie did apologize afterward, but we both silently agreed never to bring up Hawaii again. Turns out the turquoise sea and clear blue sky really are the best medicine for a wounded soul. I stayed in Hawaii for a week. Somehow, all those memories of Natalie felt like they were being washed away by the rhythm of the waves. I left the past behind and focused on the beauty around me. But of course, someone had to ruin it. Once Victor found out I'd broken up with Natalie, he started sending me updates of their time together. Sometimes it was a photo of 2 straws in the same milk tea. Other times, it was Natalie leaning her head on his shoulder. The captions were always vaguely flirtatious. "I'll be with you through everything. True love is staying, not chasing." I treated him like a digital pet, taking screenshots every time, saving them like a collector. But today I suddenly realized it was all meaningless. So I blocked and deleted him without hesitation. On my first day back at work after the vacation, I took a longer route on purpose. The direct road to the office passed by Natalie's favorite coffee shop. Every morning before work, she'd stop there to get her coffee. At this hour, she'd probably be in line right now. Just the thought of bumping into her made me take a detour, even if it meant walking 20 minutes more. When I arrived at the office, I saw my desk piled with small snacks gifts from coworkers who'd heard the news. It seemed word of the breakup had already spread. After a week off, a mountain of work had piled up. As soon as I finished organizing my files, Ryan tiptoed over like he was sneaking into enemy territory. He studied my expression carefully. And once he saw I looked normal, he leaned in and whispered, "Boss, ... I heard you and Natalie had a falling out." Without even looking up, I corrected him. "Not a falling out, a breakup." Ryan scratched his head, clearly wanting to say more, but hesitating. "Then, what about the project between our team and her department?" "Follow the company process," I cut him off neatly. "Sign where signatures are needed. Business as usual. My relationship with Natalie won't..." Sure, our breakup hadn't been pretty. In fact, it had been downright messy. But I wasn't so petty that I'd sabotage her at work. Business is business. Emotions are emotions. I still knew where that line was. At the entrance of the break room, I ran right into Natalie. The dark circles under her eyes were heavy. Her face was shockingly pale. I turned sideways to walk past her, but she suddenly reached out and grabbed my sleeve. "Kevin, it's been days now. You can't still be mad, right?" I almost wondered if I'd heard her wrong. "Natalie, did you hit your head or something?" "We broke up. Do you understand what breakup means?" My tone was firm, but she stubbornly blocked my path. Just because I didn't show up to register the marriage? I actually let out a laugh out of pure frustration. She still didn't get it. And honestly, I didn't either. If Victor would always come first in her heart, then why didn't she just be with him? Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a few coworkers pretending to pass by, clearly eavesdropping. "I don't want to argue here," I said. "But remember this. When it's over, it's over. Stop showing up and making a scene." I shook her hand off, turned, and walked away without looking back. From that day on, I threw myself completely into work. Any tasks that required collaboration with her department, I handed off to someone else on the team. Every time I passed Natalie in the hallway, she'd slow her steps and look at me like she wanted to say something. But I always looked right past her, like she didn't exist. That was how things stayed until Friday afternoon, when the old CEO suddenly called me into his office. "Kevin, the position at the London branch is still available," he said, sliding a folder across the desk. "You told me last time you needed to think about it because of your relationship. That's no longer an issue, right?" My fingers paused on the file. Half a year ago, I'd been in this exact same situation. Back then, Natalie had teary eyes and said, "Long distance is too hard. I won't feel secure if we're apart." To ease her worries, I turned down a major promotion. I still remember the look of disappointment in the CEO's eyes that day, clear as if it had just happened. Now, sitting there again, I couldn't help but find it laughable. The sacrifices I'd made for love, the compromises I thought they meant something. Looking back, it was all just self-inflicted sentimentality. A private little tragedy I staged for myself. "No problem," I said crisply, signing my name without hesitation. "I'm ready whenever you need me." The paperwork for going abroad was processed quickly. The company scheduled my departure for right after the New Year holiday, on the eve of Chinese New Year. I was in a jewelry store at the mall, picking out a gold necklace, planning to surprise my mom during the holiday. I was leaning over the glass counter studying the designs when I suddenly heard a familiar voice behind me. "Kevin." My back tensed instantly. I didn't need to turn around to know whose voice it was. Sure enough, when I turned, I saw Victor holding Natalie's hand, standing just a few steps away. Their fingers were tightly interlocked, and Victor wore a smug, triumphant grin. What a coincidence. Kevin, Natalie, and I are picking out couple rings, as if afraid I hadn't noticed. Victor deliberately raised their joined hands. The matching rings on their fingers sparkled under the lights. Natalie instinctively tried to pull her hand away, but Victor tightened his grip, and she gave up. And to think, he added with a smirk, "We have you to thank. If you hadn't stepped aside, who knows how much longer we would have stayed in denial." Victor's smile was full of mockery. He raised his brows at me like he was showing off some grand prize. It was disgusting, this whole "I won the trophy" expression. Compared to him, Natalie's reaction was interesting. She kept her head low, eyes flickering nervously. When she caught sight of the scorn in my gaze, she even took an unconscious step back. How ironic. Just a few days ago at work, she was begging me to get back together. Now she stood there, clinging to another man like some delicate little bird. That level of two-faced switch-up would make even a Sichuan opera master blushed on in public like this. I hadn't planned on saying anything nasty. I was going to walk away. But then I caught Victor's smug expression and changed my mind. Why let them save face? If this perfect couple wanted to put on a show in front of me, then as the ex, I might as well give them a proper review. I calmly adjusted my tie and let a slow, meaningful smile curve across my lips. "You really like picking up what other people throw away, huh?" That one line drained the color from both their faces. My eyes deliberately swept across Natalie. Well, makes sense. A cracked pot fits a broken lid. You two really are made for each other. Natalie just stood there blank and speechless. Victor's face turned an ugly shade of green. His carefully maintained mask shattered as he growled, "Kevin, since when were you this bitter? So what if you talk tough? I'm the one standing next to Natalie now." I laughed lightly. Doesn't it sting hearing the truth? Bragging about a relationship you snatched like a homewrecker's that your proudest moment? Victor reacted like a cat that just got its tail stomped. His voice jumped an octave. "You don't get it. Natalie and I have been childhood sweethearts." If you hadn't gotten in the way, I cut him off slowly, deliberately dragging my words. "Oh, right. You were childhood sweethearts. Yet after all those years, Natalie still didn't choose to marry you. Why do you think that is?" I gave a soft, mocking chuckle and shook my head. "You're the only third wheel I've ever seen who's this proud of himself. Really iconic. You." He clenched his fist so tight the veins on his arms bulged, but Natalie held him back with all her strength. That last sentence had struck like a knife straight into the softest, sorest part of his ego. His face twisted. His mouth hung open, but no comeback came out. Natalie, meanwhile, had gone deathly pale, staring ahead like a ghost. Around us, other customers had already turned to watch. A few were whispering. Gossip was clearly brewing. A surge of satisfaction rolled through me. I watched their expressions shift like a stage play, then casually picked up the wrapped necklace from the counter. "Wishing you both eternal happiness," I said evenly. "And please do the world a favor and stop dragging other people down with you."
Ow.
At the New Year's Eve dinner table, my mom was piling food into my bowl while asking, "Why didn't you bring Natalie home with you?" I replied casually, "We broke up." She froze mid-movement. "What? What happened?" Everything seemed fine. Why break up all of a sudden? I hadn't wanted to dump all that messy drama on my parents during the holidays. They wouldn't let it go. They kept pressing for answers. With no choice, I told them everything. How I'd been stood up 5 times at the marriage registration office. Well done. My mom slammed the table, trembling with anger. "She's unbelievable. Losing you is her loss or gain. Don't feel bad, son. I'll introduce you to someone better. Your dad knows a few good families too." My dad jumped in quickly. Yeah. Your Uncle Lee's daughter is great. She's even got a PhD. I chuckled helplessly and interrupted, "Dad, Mom, I'm leaving for London right after the holiday. Can you please stop trying to play matchmaker?" At the mention of my upcoming move abroad, my mom paused, then quietly placed a piece of braised pork into my bowl. "Eat more," she said softly. "Once you're in the UK, you won't get to taste your mom's cooking anymore." Her voice suddenly caught in her throat. I felt a pang in my chest and quickly lowered my head, shoveling rice into my mouth to hide my reddening eyes. In that moment, I made a quiet promise to myself. I'd work harder, earn more, and give my parents the life they truly deserve. After dinner, I was in the kitchen doing the dishes when the doorbell suddenly rang. My dad muttered, "Who's knocking at this hour on New Year's Eve?" I paused, hand on the suitcase latch, then let out a short chuckle. I'd never realized just how brainless she could be. Did she think the company belonged to her or something? "What did the CEO do?" I asked. "Oh, he kicked her out on the spot," Ryan laughed. "Told her if she threw one more tantrum like that, she could pack her bags and leave for good." I let out a quiet sigh of relief. The second chance the opportunity I'd earned, Bakai wasn't going to let it slip away, because of her again. Stepping out onto the balcony, I saw a thin figure down below, still standing in the snow. Natalie was blowing warm air into her hands, rubbing them together. Her nose was red, her cheeks pale and streaked with frozen tears, but her eyes stayed fixed on my window. Once upon a time, even a tiny paper cut on her hand would have made my heart ache. But now, watching her stand there in the freezing cold, my heart was completely still like dead water. That pitiful look, the trembling lips, the tear-filled eyes, once it would have broken me. Now it just felt ridiculous. Who was she performing for? If she'd really cared that much, why had she thrown me aside for Victor again and again? I closed the balcony door, and with that, I shut out the wind, the snow, and her. Early the next morning, there was a knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. I buried my head under the covers, but the sound just kept coming, stabbing straight into my temples. My parents had gone out to visit relatives for the holiday, so I was alone at home. Frustrated, I threw off the covers and stormed to the door, still half asleep and irritated. When I opened it and saw Natalie, my anger flared instantly. I took a deep breath. But the fury that had been simmering all night just burst out. "Natalie, do you even know what time it is? It's New Year's Day and you're pounding on someone's door like this? What is wrong with you?" She froze, one hand still raised, her wide eyes staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. I knew I looked rough, messy hair, crumpled clothes, and a face full of irritation. Definitely not the composed version of me she was used to seeing. But it didn't matter anymore, Kevin. She said softly, "Are you still mad?" Mad? I didn't even care enough to be mad anymore. The person in front of me wasn't worth that kind of energy. "You don't have the right to make me angry," said coldly. Her hands twisted in her lap, her voice shrinking with every word. "I couldn't reach you. You blocked my number, my WeChat. You even took back the spare key." I instantly regretted opening the door. Listening to this was a waste of time. I reached out to shut it, but she suddenly pushed her shoulder into the gap. "Don't close it. Please, just talk to me. I have nothing to say to you." "Then I'm not leaving."
Looking at her.
I realized she wouldn't go unless I gave in. If the neighbors saw her standing out there, it would just cause gossip. After a long moment of hesitation, I sighed and stepped back. "Fine, come in." I leaned against the sofa while she pulled over a dining chair and sat across from me. She placed both hands neatly on her knees, sitting up straight like a nervous student about to give a presentation. "Kevin," she said, taking a deep breath, "let's get back together. I've thought it through. I only ever saw Victor as a younger brother. The truth is, the only person I've ever really loved has always been you." For a second, I honestly thought I'd misheard her. Then came this sharp wave of irritation. Who did Natalie think she was expecting everyone to revolve around her moods? When she was tangled up with Victor, she told me not to be petty, to be the mature boyfriend. But I didn't want to be mature. I didn't want to keep swallowing my pride again and again just to keep her happy. I wanted peace, so I stepped aside. I let her have her so-called happy ending. And now, after everything, she'd figured it out? Now she wanted to play the role of the devoted lover. She wasn't done clinging at the office, and now she was here, barging right back into my life again. Who did she think she was? A princess. "Natalie," I said, sitting up and meeting her eyes. "What makes you think I'd just stand here forever, waiting for you to come back?" She looked lost, like she couldn't even process what I was saying. She just kept talking, her voice trembling but rehearsed, as if she were reading from a script. Kevin, whether you believe it or not, the only person I've ever liked is you. That day at the mall, Victor was only trying to provoke you. I've never actually been in a relationship with him, really. I said, then how do you explain these? I pulled out my phone and shoved it in front of her face, scrolling through the screenshots I'd saved for this exact moment. I'd been waiting for this. You wear a camisole and cuddle with your little brother? You share a straw with your little brother? You kiss your little brother? Her face drained of color right in front of me. She couldn't say a single word. Fine, I said. Let's say all of that was just a big act to provoke me. What about before that? Was it my fault we never made it to Hawaii? Did I force you to bail on our marriage registration 5 times? Stop making excuses, Natalie. Is it really that hard to admit you don't know where to draw the line with men? I leaned forward, voice low but cutting. You love this kind of emotional game, don't you? On one hand, stringing along your so-called little brother, and on the other, keeping your boyfriend on a leash. Tell me, Natalie, don't you find that disgusting? It hit her where it hurt? Her face twisted, not from guilt, but from the refusal to face the truth. Victor was definitely part of the problem, but every one of his stunts only happened because Natalie allowed it, sometimes even encouraged it. All those lingering looks. The casual touching, the deliberate intimacy right in front of me, and she acted like it was normal. Like I was the crazy one for getting upset. But she was the one who'd lit the match. She was the reason our relationship burned to ashes. She was worse than Victor. I stood up, towering over her. Not every mistake, I said coldly, can be fixed with a pathetic little "I've thought it through." Suddenly, she threw her arms around me, trembling as she begged, Kevin, I know I was wrong. Please, please don't leave me. That touch, something that once felt so familiar now, made my skin crawl. I instinctively tried to pull away, but she pushed harder, rising on her toes and trying to kiss me. Just as her lips were about to touch mine, I shoved her, hard. Natalie stumbled back, lost her balance in her high heels, and fell to the floor. She stared up at me in disbelief, like she couldn't even comprehend what had just happened. I was done. I'd already reached my limit. Not laying a hand on her was the last bit of restraint I had left. I took a slow breath, glaring down at the woman on the floor. 3 years, I said quietly. 3 years of putting up with someone like you. The joke's on me. I grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward the door. She tried to resist, but I flung it open and pushed her out without hesitation. She pounded on the door, voice shaking and desperate. Kevin, open the door. I really know. I was wrong. We can register the marriage tomorrow, okay? I didn't care anymore. Let the neighbors stare. Just being in the same room as her made my skin crawl. I rubbed my temples, took out my phone, and scrolled to Victor's number in my blacklist. It's Mikevin, I said when he picked up. Natalie's having a meltdown outside my apartment. Either come get her, or I'm calling the cops. Before he could answer, I hung up. About 20 minutes later, Victor showed up, panting and red-faced, kicked the door a few times and shouted, he won't even let you in. He doesn't care. About you. Why the hell are you still chasing after him? Natalie kept crying, rambling that she loved me and all the rest of it. Their shouting went on for 5 or 6 minutes until Victor finally half-dragged. Half-carried her into the elevator, and then silence. Later, a friend told me Natalie had fallen sick. She'd spent the entire night standing in the snow outside my building, unable to move on, and eventually ended up in the hospital with a high fever. They said even in her delirium, she kept calling my name. A few people tried to test the waters, asking if I wanted to go see her. I turned them all down. Later, Ryan told me more. Natalie and Victor were still tangled up in their toxic mess. Victor had started showing up at the company every other day, completely obsessed. Eventually, the CEO had enough and fired Natalie for good. I never asked about her again. I didn't care anymore now. I sat on a plane bound for London, leaving behind every person in memory from that part of my life. What waited ahead was a new beginning, a brighter, cleaner life,